Hey everyone, good afternoon. It's good to see you. My name is Mark Dolfini of Strategic Boardroom, and you're here because you want to learn a little bit more about networking. So this is the session that we're covering today is your networking not working. This is was really a pop-up event. I really didn't have this on my calendar for today, but I had a cancellation in my calendar early this week, and I was like, oh, I could actually do this. So, for those of you who hopped on and signed up for this last minute, welcome. It's probably going to be a smaller crowd unless we get a bunch of folks that join us from YouTube. But it is good to see you. Thank you for joining me, and let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in. Where are you from, and what line of work are you in? Um, so let's do, well, all right, there we go. All right, so let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in. So that way I can make it a little bit more relevant to you and maybe what networking struggles that you're having. I know a lot of people who come into this session are tend to be avid networkers, and I will be honest with you, when I first was exposed to the concept of networking, it was not really the greatest experience for me because I was very busy. I was working two part-time jobs and I was going to school full-time at Purdue University. And my time was at a massive premium. Like, I did not have a lot of extra time for really just socializing or really anything that was just kind of nonsense. And when I was invited to a business after hours one time, and I was I was just a basic line teller. Like, I wasn't anything special in the bank. And the branch manager who happened to be my age, I was just getting out of the Marine Corps, and had invited me to this networking event after hours. Well, the networking really was nothing more than roughly people our own age in our 20s, and some of them were in their early 30s, who were just wanting to have an excuse to stand around and drink. And listen, I'm not opposed to that sort of thing. Like, I don't really care. Like, I don't really drink much these days just because in my 50s now, recovery time is just like significantly longer. But what I'm saying is that everybody was just standing around drinking and talking about sports and just stuff that I just could not have cared less about. And it was interesting. So that was my first exposure to what networking was. And granted, people were, they would ask me about, what it was I was doing. And of course, I'm just a bank teller. So I'm like, well, I'm just a teller. And I'm just, I had nothing to offer these people. These were people who were well into their careers at that point in time. And that was my initial exposure to what I thought networking was. And of course, that can be a component of networking, but it really wasn't it wasn't the best exposure to what networking really is. And I will tell you, I went on to I joined a networking organization called BNI. And I was in BNI for 14 years. And I had served many different leadership capacities within BNI. And BNI is a wonderful organization. I think it makes a lot of sense for a lot of different types of businesses. But once I got into that and I really understood what really networking was, then I really got to be a much more effective networker. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is making sure that your networking is effective. So we've got a couple people that are saying hello. Sabah, you are a business developer in Neptune Yachts Rental in Neptune. Business developer in Neptune. I don't know where Neptune is, so maybe tell me what that is. India. It is residence in Dubai. Oh, gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense. All right, excellent. So again, if you're just joining me, let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in, and also maybe what you're hoping to learn better from networking, and maybe what your struggles are from networking. Yep, in Dubai. Gotcha. Okay, I did not know that. I did not know there was a place called Neptune in Dubai. So I have learned something today. Thank you, Sabah. You have made my life better. All right, so let's get to this, and this is important. Like, I'm going to ask each and every one of you to pay attention to something for me. And I'm looking to connect with business owners and entrepreneurs who are in the service industry or are in the contracting industry. I want you to think of maybe coffee shop owners, restaurant owners. They might be in the real estate business. They might be in sales or rentals or property management, or they could be contractors like heating and air conditioning, or plumbers, or maybe general contractors who do room additions. Let's pause. What did I do just there? What did I do when I was describing those individuals? I was really specific. I was really specific in terms of of who it was that I was looking for. And yes, am I looking for those people? Yes, those are the types of people I'm generally working that I'd like to work with as a strategist. But and a lot of times when I ask people who it is that they're looking for, if they have an answer at all, if they've thought it through at all, a lot of times they're looking like, well, anyone who needs, a new bank, or anyone, if they're a banker, or anyone who's looking to maybe buy a house, if they're a realtor. These are the sorts of things where they're using the word anyone because they really haven't taken the time to think that through. So again, I was very specific in my ask. I'm looking for business owners or entrepreneurs who are in the service industry, but specifically who are contractors, or they could be even in the restaurant business or coffee shop owners. They might be in the real estate business. A lot of times they're in property management. A lot of times they are contractors like HVAC work, or they do plumbing work, or they might be electricians. You see what I'm doing? The more specific I can be is the more likelihood that I'm triggering something like, oh, wait a minute, my brother-in-law is an electrician. Oh, okay, cool. Like, I'd love to chat with him if he's having X, Y, and Z problem. If he's looking to grow his business and he's struggling, I'd love to chat with him, see what I can do for him. Okay, so this is important when you're thinking from that perspective. Sabah saying Neptune. Oh, so Neptune is a company. Now that makes sense. Okay, I work for a company, Neptune Yachts Rental. Okay, we rent out yachts for tours. Okay, and you live in Dubai. Now it's making sense. Thank you for clearing that up. Okay, thank you, Sabah. All right, so I was thinking like that didn't make sense that Neptune was in Dubai, but Neptune Company is in Dubai. All right, I got you. All right, so but the main thing that I see, and this is a question that I often ask people when people are really struggling with networking, and a lot of times I'm saying, well, what are you hoping to get from your network? I don't know. I go to a networking event. I'm hoping to get, maybe someone to buy my thing. That's not networking. That's direct sales. And direct sales, there's a place for direct sales, but that's not networking. That is when you show up and you're trying to sell to everyone in the crowd, you're being that guy or that gal. You're being the person that's trying to sell to your network, not trying to where people will find people for you to buy from your network. You understand the difference? And that's a huge consideration. And most people who struggle in their networking, and they're going out, they're basically they're running around shaking hands and just kind of firing off all sorts of business cards, and they're not getting results because many times what they're doing is they're trying to sell to their crowd, and they're not bringing value to their network. That's really important, because if the only value that you bring to the network is your stack of business cards, and if I ask Sabah to say, hey, do you know of anybody who lives in Dubai that is struggling to grow their business? Maybe they have an international business and they're trying to really figure out and dial in who their avatar is, who they really like to work with. Okay. Do you know someone like that? Yeah, actually my brother's got a company and he's just cannot seem to get it off the ground. He cannot seem to gain traction. Okay. Love to chat with him. These are the sorts of things. That's why it's important that when you're bringing value to your network, you're not trying to sell directly to the person that's across the table from you. You're trying to help them figure out who your ideal client is, and you can or connect. You should know who your ideal client avatar is, but they should be the one that's trying to connect that for you. Does that make sense? So you have to bring value to your network more than just you trying to sell to them. So, for example, let's see, we got someone. Let's see here. Lainey Santos, 7:30. Hello, nice to see you. Glad you could join us. So we're talking about networking. Is your networking not working? And if you're not bringing value to your network, why are they going to want to stick around? So for example, if I knew someone who was going to Dubai which I actually knew a couple, or I know a couple, who literally just visited Dubai within the last 60 days. Had I known Sabah earlier, I probably could have said, cool, hey, I know a guy named Sabah, and he's got a company that does charter tours. And maybe that would be something they would be interested in when they were there. So these are the sorts of things that are good to know in advance. So I no offense, I don't have any interest in visiting Dubai, so I wouldn't necessarily be an avatar for his company. That's why I'm saying like him trying to sell to me would be just wasting my time and his. So you have to start to think about what value are you bringing to your network. Well, I'll give you an example. Again, Sabah. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Sabah is a girl. So Sabah, I apologize. I did not know that. So Sabah, female, is trying to, let's say that I don't know anything about boat tours in Dubai. I know nothing about. I don't know anything about I know it's the Atlantic Ocean. I'm assuming. I have no idea. Right? Let's say, or whatever ocean or whatever body of water it is that these boat tours are on. She can now educate me and say, hey, here's something that you should know about boat tours. Sometimes the boats are too small. And because the boats are so small, the waves are really rough. So you always want a boat that's going to be at least probably 35 to 40 feet long. Okay, that's good to know. Okay. And she can educate me on certain things about different boat tours. There's certain boat tours you'd say, a lot of times people pay for these really long boat tours, right? Like 4 and 5 hours. And really, most people say that they're probably about 2 hours too long. They really like these shorter boat tours so they can go, say that they did it. They get their photos, right? They get out there. That it's nice on the ocean. They don't go so far out where they can't see the land anymore. They feel comfortable. They feel safe. And after 2 hours are done, right? I'm making all of this up. But if that's something that she is educating me on, she has now brought value to me. And now I can help her find more people who are actually interested in this. Okay. So this is why it's really important to be really specific and bring value to me, educate me, tell me a little bit about what it is that you do, make my life a little bit better than when you found it. And that's the value that you're bringing to your network. Okay. So, really good. Thank you. Thank you, Sabah. Thank you for showing up today. Jasmine is, hi, I'm a mobile notary that is ready to take my business seriously. And I've never been to a networking event, but I am definitely looking to put myself in position. Okay. So again, Jasmine, it's good to have you. You have to start thinking about this when you're going to an event. You have to start thinking about, well, what value could I bring to the table? So if you're meeting, you might be thinking, well, who might need a mobile notary? Real estate agents, title insurance companies, bankers potentially. Right? These are the sorts of people who could use a mobile notary, where you can travel and go do your notary thing for people who really need your services. Okay. But what value could you bring to your network? Could you offer them and say, hey, you know what? This is something that most people don't think about notaries. And this is something that you could do. Did you know that you cannot notarize something for someone that you have a direct relationship with, or a directly related, like a relative? Okay. And I think that's the case, but obviously Jasmine would know this better than I. But if you find yourself in that situation, I would love to step in. Okay. Again, this is where you're bringing value to the network more than just trying to sell to them. And all of this, is the crux of this, is about generating and creating trust. So when you're trying to create trust, there's 7 elements of trust. Those first 2 elements of trust is based around competence and character. When you're demonstrating value, when you're when you're educating the people across the room from you who don't know anything about, sorry, I'm half choking today. Jasmine is saying that is correct. Yeah, in terms of using a notary for someone you're related to. Okay, yeah, I thought that was the case. So if Sabah, for example, or let's say Lainey Santos, they do something specifically and they can educate me in terms of what it is that they do. Now I'm a better salesperson for them. I'm a better networker for them. Like, well, who is it you're looking for? Well, I'm really looking to make connections to title insurance companies, because a lot of times, and they have their go-to people, but sometimes they get busy, sometimes they get sick, sometimes they get COVID, sometimes they go on vacation, and I would love to be a backup for them. Okay, great. Let's make those connections. So that's the sort of things. But again, if you're demonstrating competence to me, that is what raises trust the fastest. That's what raises trust. The fastest way to create trust with the individual with you is to demonstrate competence. Let them know that you know what you're talking about. And don't do it in a combative way, but do it in an educational way. Do it and say, "Hey, yeah, that's something that I've worked with. Did you know, that this is something that's might be interesting to the avatar that I'm working with." All right. So the other thing is character. So you have competence and you have character. And this is, so you go to BNI meetups in Dubai as a visitor. Yeah. And I'll tell you, Sabah, that is, so I was in BNI for 14 years. I worked my way all the way up to area director level. In fact, this book down here, these two white books down here, the reason a huge reason why those books even exist is because of Ivan Meisner, who is the founder of BNI. And Ivan Meisner actually endorsed those two books. And the reason why I bring up his name is because, I would consider him a friend. He really helped me in ways that I could never repay him. But BNI taught me so much about business and also so much about networking. He actually hosted a book writing workshop for totally free. And I learned so much from that. It was not long after that I actually published my books. So he was a huge proponent of people writing and helping to help to establish that competence. And really, when you're writing, people seem to get to know you a little bit better, right? They seem to tend to know you as an individual when they are reading about you. So again, that helps with that competence, and it also helps with that character. The main thing too that I see, again, when people are, is your networking not working? Sometimes you have to look at these different elements of trust in terms of why they may not trust you. Because if they don't trust you in any of these 7, and you don't know why, I'm going to get to the other 5 here in just a second. But if they don't trust you, they're not going to do business with you, and you won't ever know why. So these two here, competence and character, if you're demonstrating bad character, you can be the most competent individual in your field, and people may still not do business with you because they don't trust your character. That's a big deal. So I'm just letting you know, when you're doing these sorts of things, when you're recognizing that you're showing up, and how could you demonstrate bad character? Well, there's lots of ways. There are lots of ways to demonstrate bad character. If I came on here and I was mentioning my bride, and I'm getting ready, I'm married and all this other stuff, but then I start talking about having a girlfriend on the side, you'd be like, man, what a creep. Obviously demonstrating lack of character. In a lot of networking events, and it's like, there's a lot of alcohol, a lot of times where people will be flowing. And again, I'm not anti-alcohol. I just think there's a time and a place for it. And when people go and they drink way too much at a networking event and they start showing their butt, that's demonstrating lack of character. And again, how much are they going to trust that individual to actually do business with them? Now, I get it. I mean, there's some people who go on the golf course and they can start drinking at 8 in the morning and drink all the way through to 8 at night, and they're fine. I don't know, man. That's just not me. I feel like I'm much sharper if I don't. But again, your mileage may vary. You do what you feel is right for you. But it could be demonstrating lack of character. So the other elements of trust are caring, confidence, commitment, communication, and consistency. And all of these elements of trust, I believe, and this is just true for me, I believe that competence and character are two trees that share the same root system. And they have a symbiotic relationship with one another. And caring, confidence, commitment, communication, and consistency are fruit of those two trees. Now, like caring, for example, I think caring is pretty much fruit directly of character. So if you've ever heard people they don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care, that is directly related and correlated to character. If you're looking at confidence, like how much do I have caring trust? Do I have confidence trust? Are they really confident in my ability to do what I say what I'm going to do? And that's kind of a little bit of character and a little bit of competence. What about commitment, right? commitment trust is how committed are you to whatever thing it is. And I see this in a lot of small business entrepreneurs who have all these different business ideas and all these different businesses that they're in and all these different businesses that they represent. Well, dude, what are you committed to other than just you trying to make a side hustle? Every time I turn around, you're asking me about a different, you're trying to pitch me on something different, and you're not committed to one specific core purpose within a business. What about communication trust? Now, not often, not only how much do you communicate, but how well do you communicate? How often do you communicate? Are you communicating only when you need something, or are you communicating well to that individual and bringing value to them as often as possible? And the last one is consistency. Consistency trust is how much are you showing up, and how well are you showing up when you say you're going to show up and when is expected. So these are the sorts of elements around trust. And again, if you're lacking in any one of these areas, people may not trust you and you may not know why. So these are elements that you have to stop and say, you know what? If I'm being really honest with myself, probably have to work a little bit better on my consistency. Might have to work a little bit better on my communication. Sometimes I fly off the handle. Sometimes I swear too much. Whatever. These are the sorts of things that you have to pay attention to so people can trust you. Now, I've heard people say this before, and I think this is absolutely true, and I'm going to give you an example. The value of your net worth is directly related to the value of your network. And I'll tell you this. I had a very tricky title problem. So I was having title work that needed to get done. And Sabah is saying, I have been going to a lot of networking events. It's just not working for me. Okay, Sabah. So what I'm going to ask you first and foremost is, how much do people feel like they can trust you? Do you feel like you are operating at high levels in all 7 of those areas around, again, you've got your, let me go back to the screen so you can see that, where you've got your competence trust, your caring trust, your confidence, commitment, communication, and consistency. How much do people really trust you in all these 7 areas? And sometimes you might need to ask, do you feel that I'm confident in what I do? Do you feel that I'm committed to this organization and what it is that I do and giving people a really good experience? Do you think I communicate well? Do you think I communicate often enough? Do you think I'm consistent in what I do? Do you think I care? Do you think I'm competent? Do you think I know what I'm talking about? And do you trust my character? Right? These are the sorts of questions. And sometimes you just need to ask these questions flat out so people can really be honest with you. And that's the best thing you can do, in my opinion. Okay. So I totally get that. And Sabah is saying, they listen, however, as when it comes to giving me business. So I think I understand what you're saying. Basically, they listen to you, but they don't bring you business. Is that kind of what you're saying? So again, this also might be, to me, it sounds like it might be a trust issue. And the other thing is too, is you have to recognize that people in BNI chapters, they're going to be a little protective of their tribe. They're going to be a little, so you're saying yes. Yep. So, and I have noticed this too with BNI visitors, is that when BNI visitors show up and they're trying to sell to the room, that hardly ever works for them. And the reason why is like, okay, so it sounds to me like you want the benefits of BNI, but you don't want to join BNI. That's commitment. Okay. So I'm just saying, if I'm going to give you a referral, I want to give you an example here, and we'll get back on track here. But when people are, have you ever had someone give you a recommendation for a book to read? Or have you ever gotten a recommendation for a movie and the movie was great or the movie sucked? Okay. Either way, when you have watched that movie, you will forever, and let's say it was an amazing movie, you will forever attach that person who recommended that movie to you just subconsciously. You're like, oh my gosh, yeah, my sister recommended it. I saw this movie, such a good movie. I'm really grateful that she recommended it. Okay. Or on the other side, my brother-in-law recommended I go to this restaurant and thought that it was going to be amazing. I'm sorry, the food was horrible. And now you start attaching that experience to your brother-in-law. Does that make sense? So that's the same thing that happens in referrals, is that if I refer you and I'm not really super convinced that you're really confident in what it is that you do, or you're really committed, or that you really care, I'm going to be a little skeptical to put my name and attach my name as a referral source to someone else. So you might just need to ask, hey, look, I've been to this meeting and I've asked for referrals a couple different times. Is there something that you're seeing in me that why people might not be giving me referrals? You have to ask the question. And sometimes you might have to ask that question a number of times before someone's really honest with you. And you might not like what you hear, but it does give you something to change, something to work forward from, so you can change it. Okay. But let's get back to this really quick. So the value of your net worth is directly related to the value of your network. There was a loan I was trying to get through on a couple of properties that I had, and I had some horrendous title problems with these properties. It was basically, there was liens on the property from someone who in my family was deceased, and I just needed to get these things cleared up. And there was really no loans attached to them. It was just liens. So I had to get these heirs to sign them and everything else. It was just a mess. Well, on top of that, I didn't want to start down that path until I had a loan secured against those properties. So the fortunate thing is I went to my network, and there was a couple of people who I knew that were in the real estate space that also had really good access to new lenders. And I said this, his name's Walter, and I said, Walter, do you know of anybody in the space? He's like, yep, I got two names for you. And one of them wasn't quite the best fit, but the other one was an absolute match. It worked so well that it was, I mean, I started in this in November. I finally had it closed a couple of weeks ago, and it was, honestly, it was amazing. It was it wasn't easy. I'm not going to say it was easy, but it was amazing because I was able to get a sizable loan on these properties, get all the title issues cleared up. And now it really opened up a lot of things with my family and really helped me in my finances. So again, I'm just saying, if I didn't have that connection and I had to start and go out and try to find all these lenders, there's no way I would have found this particular lender. It just wouldn't have worked. Okay. So yes, really taking the time to groom and work and make connections and keep those connections relevant is absolutely what you should be doing in your networking. So let's get into this a little bit. I'm going to get into the agenda here. I know we're half an hour in, but I just want to get into some of these nuances here. We're going to talk a little bit about the Viper framework, which is specific to business owners. Then we're going to talk about the 4 core functions, which again is relevant for you to know about all 4 functions of any business. We're going to talk about lead generation. Then we're going to talk a little bit about networking. And then of course, I'm going to give you some success strategies at the end. So when we're looking at the Viper framework, this is a strategic approach to managing your life and your business. I'm not going to go through all of the nuances of the Viper method, but specifically it's an acronym for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. When it comes to vision is where it all starts. It's this top-down approach to how you're going to look at your life and your business. And specifically, your life part is the personal vision component, and your business part is obviously the business vision component. When you're looking at your personal vision is going to ask you a very simple question. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go in your life, Sabah? Where do you want to go in your life, Jasmine? Where are these places that you're trying to go? Lainey, where are you trying to go in your life? If your life wasn't defined by income generation, where would you want to go? What would your relationship with your significant other look like, your spouse? What is your vision for your relationship with your family? What's your vision for your relationship with your children? On and on and on. So when you think about that, that's where I want you to think that if you woke up with, $30 million or 30 million pounds or 30 million euro or whatever your denominational currency is for lots of money, if you woke up and you really didn't have to worry about income anymore, where your job description wasn't also your life description, that's what I want you to think about. What would your life look like from day-to-day perspective if you didn't have to worry about income generation? Next, you're going to think about that in the context of business vision. So your business vision is like, okay, cool. Now that I know where you want to go, the business vision is going to say, cool, let's reverse engineer this so we know how to get there. And here's the interesting thing. When I have a lot of people who spend a lot of time, especially they're spending a lot of time trying to network and do all the things. A lot of networkers, they really enjoy networking because they're into people. They like connecting with people. But the thing is, I know a lot of professional networkers. I'm like, man, like all you do is network. Do you actually do any like work? Do you actually do any fulfillment? And that's the thing where I see that can get into a little bit of a trap where because they spend so much time actually in the networking side of the business, but they never actually spend real time doing the things that are really important to the fulfillment of the customer, it kind of it almost can work against them if they're not really intentional about how much, how visible they are. But the thing is with business vision, this is interesting. I've sat in many conferences and had many people who were, sitting next to me in seminars and in masterminds who were literally legitimately making 6 and 7 figures a month net, like take home. And meanwhile, their life is a mess. And you know what the thing that they were most interested in? Making more money. Getting an extra comma in their bank account. That's what they were most concerned with. And and I'm just telling you, that is just an empty well that just never gets filled in. So the danger in creating this business vision or this career vision before ever giving any consideration to a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. Let me say that again. The danger in creating a business vision before creating a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. So I'm not suggesting that personal vision or business vision is irrelevant. It just can't come first. So take the time to really spend and really get clear about what your personal vision needs to look like. In the context of business vision, those are broken down into 3 C's. And anytime I look at someone who is struggling in their business as an entrepreneur, or struggling if they're hiring me as a strategist and they really want to take their business to the next level, I'm looking at these 3 C's specifically. And these 3 C's of business vision are core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Core purpose, core values, client avatar. Let's unpack each one of those. So let's look at core purpose. Core purpose is specifically what business are you in and what problems do you specifically solve. If you're not specific in your core purpose, people are not going, they're not going to know really what it is that you do. So for you, Sabah, for example, you say that you are in, you do these boat tours. That's phenomenal. That's great. So because you do these boat tours specifically in this geographic area, is there a specific avatar that you're looking for? Do you generally do, are you working with tourists? Are you working with people who are locals? It's really important that I know specifically with the purpose of what it is that you do. Are you an experience? Do you do experiences or do you do fishing? Do you do both? But it's really important that you get dialed in on the core purpose about what business are you specifically in and almost to obnoxiously what you're not doing. You're like, no, we do not do fishing. That is not what we do. Okay, fine. Right? You're like, yep, I don't want to deal with the laws. I don't want to deal with fish hooks. I don't want to deal with bait. I don't want to smell like fish at the end of the day. I just want to take people out on the boat tours. Okay, perfect. That makes total sense. So once you get really dialed in the core purpose, and this is really important, especially with your networking, because if you're not clear in your core purpose, and again, I see this very often with people who are entrepreneurs because they have an idea every 15 seconds, right, for business, or every time they get out of the shower, they've got a new business idea. Ask me how I know. Because your core purpose is so fragmented, it's really hard to give people referrals whose core purpose is wandering all over the map. Now, I'll give you an example. When you're thinking out, when you're thinking like, let's say that you have an automobile garage, right, or a mechanic. So the mechanic, can he replace wiper blades? Sure. Could he replace blinkers? Sure. Could he replace tires? Possibly. Could he work on the motor? Sure. Could he work on your brakes? Sure. Could he do the mufflers? Great. Could he do the transmission? Probably not, because that's probably more specialized. But he does a lot of different things around the passenger vehicle. That's the core purpose. And it's really specific. Now, does he work on buses? Probably not, because he really likes to stay within passenger vehicles. So it's important that you know what you are and really be obnoxious about what you're not. So that's the core purpose. Next is the core values. What matters to you about this business and how would the world be worse off if you went out of business? This is absolutely going to show up in your networking. If you feel like if you're showing up, and again, this is a demonstration of character. So you have to remember that your business is an extension of you. So if any of you have ever had a friend, sometimes a significant other, sometimes someone that maybe you've been involved with romantically, and they were heading down a path that you were not willing to follow. Understand? That's happened to all of us. If you lived in this life for more than 15 minutes, that's going to happen. People will disappoint you sometimes, and that's heartbreaking. But because they were heading down a path that you weren't willing to follow them, you said, nope, I can't follow you down that path. I'm not going to engage in this relationship any further. And because you were willing to act, that's how you know something is a core value. So that violation of that core value, that line in the sand that they crossed, represents a core value for you. So let's say that they were stealing things, or let's say that they were saying one thing and doing another. That would be a violation of integrity, right? So, or violation of honesty, whatever it is. So you'd say, nope, this is kind of my line in the sand, and I'm willing to take action on it. So that's why it's important for you to really determine what your core values are and have those things defined. That way, so when people start to see how you are and how you do business and making sure that those things are aligned, that's how they're going to know that they can trust you. That's how they know they can send referrals to you. There are people in my town who have done amazing things in real estate. And in my town, I'm known for real estate as well. But I will tell you this, I don't want my wagon hitched to them at all because of the way that they do business. I don't even want people to say their name and my name in the same breath because I don't want people to connect me with them because of the way they do business. And I'm totally fine with that. And has it cost me growth? Absolutely it has. I know it has. But am I willing to put my core values on the line and at risk to do business the way that they're doing business? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Do I always get it right? No, I don't always get it right. And sometimes I make mistakes. But doing it the right way is far more important to me, especially if in alignment with my core values. So we talked about core purpose. We talked about core values. Now we're talking about client avatar. And this is a really critical piece here, especially if your networking is not working. It's because you're probably not clear enough in your avatar. And this is who specifically and ideally do you want to serve. So when you're thinking about this from a geographic, demographic, and psychographic perspective, geographics is where they are, right? Demographics is who they are. Are they married? Are they single? Are they rich? Are they poor? Are they educated? Are they not educated? Do they have kids? Do they not have kids? Whatever their demographics are. And then think of their psychographics. Psychographics is how they think and how they buy. So when you can get really clear on these areas, it's much easier for people to send referrals to you because they're going to say, oh, they live in this part of town. Great. I know someone who lives in that part of town. Great. Are they married with children and they have a small business? Yes, they have these sorts of things. Okay. Are you, do they have these other features? Do they have these psychographics? And these psychographics, I want you to think of the phrase ALIA, ALIA. And that are their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations and goals. So when you're thinking about their attitudes, what's their attitudes on life? Are they Debbie Downers or they tend to be more optimistic? What's their lifestyle like? Are they young and jet setting? Are they young and homebodies? Right? Whatever. What are their interests? Do they like to read? Do they like to watch World Cup soccer? Do they like to watch American football? Whatever. What are their interests? Are they into NASCAR? Or are they into Formula One? Whichever. What are their aspirations and goals? If you understand someone's goals, it is much easier to help them, especially if those aspirations and goals line up with your product or service. That's really critical. So you really need to be thinking through all these different areas, and you have to know your avatar cold. You have to spend a lot of time really getting to read and research and know who these people are. And sometimes they're a group. Sometimes they might be a board of directors. Sometimes they might be teams. Sometimes they might be married couples. Sometimes they might be one individual. But you have to recognize who these people are in terms of their geographics, their demographics, and their psychographics. So that is the 3 C's of business vision. And I'm just telling you, anytime I've been involved in a business and they're not clear on one or more of these, their business is struggling. They're struggling in all sorts of areas. They're struggling with their lead generation. They're struggling closing sales. They're getting too many customers who are an absolute pain in the neck, who cause them nothing but trouble, and they really don't bring them a lot of money. They don't bring in any referrals, or they have a lot of employee turnover because their core values are not defined. And again, if your core values are not defined by you, they will be defined by the strongest personality in the room. And that's true. So again, take the time to go through these things. So the next thing in the agenda, we're talking about the 4 core functions of business. And these are pretty straightforward. They're lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And your customer's journey through your business happens in this order. First, lead generation. They experience your marketing, your networking. They get to know a little bit about what it is you represent and what problems that you solve. Sound familiar? Right, that's core purpose. Then sales closes that loop. Lead generation opens the conversation, sales closes that conversation. Then you're thinking about the operations and fulfillment function. Then it starts to talk about, that's whatever the company does, right? So if you build websites, that's the thing. If you do boat tours, that's the fulfillment piece, right? Whatever. And then the final piece is the accounting and finance function. And that's generally how, when bills get paid and when money comes in and gets collected. So that's the 4 core functions of business. And that's important for you to consider when you are bringing people into your organization, especially when you're networking with people. It's important that that person you're networking with understands what the client's journey through your organization is going to be like. Because if you're not clear on that and you don't educate your networking, your referral partner in terms of what that looks like, they're not going to have a clue. They're not going to know what to expect. And if it's not consistent, your main thing is you've got to make sure that that individual who is being referred, that referral person, that customer, that potential client is getting a very consistent experience. Otherwise, again, if they go back to that referral like, oh my gosh, why did you send me to that place? Do you think that person's ever going to send you another referral ever again? Likely not. So I'm just saying, this is why you have to be clear on the 4 core, on not only the 3 C's of business vision, core purpose, core values, and client avatar, but you also have to be clear in what the lead generation, the sales, the operations, and accounting functions look like. So let's talk about lead generation. This is the third agenda item. Lead generation lets the world know that you're out there through a variety of marketing approaches. So this is really important. And there's lots of different marketing approaches out there. I'll cut these. I'll hit these real fast. Sabah is saying we give out rental yachts to tourists, residents for all parties. Okay, for all events, parties. Okay, perfect. So you will work with current residents for parties and things like that, and also for tourists. Very excellent. And Sabah is saying other yacht rental company gives more of less in price. Therefore, it becomes difficult to explain about what exceptional service we provide. So this is a positioning problem, because and this is your fault, which is good because that means you can fix it. So if you're saying, hey, look, if they do this for, let's say, I'm just going to use US dollars. If they do this for $500 and you're $750 and you're saying, well, what's the difference? And if they don't know, if you cannot articulate the main difference, you're like, well, our service is the thing that changes it. Yeah, but are people really going to buy for exceptional service? Look, service is good. Service is the expectation. That's the minimum standard. I'm going to give you this example here. So kind of going off script here. Let's just use this example. Take the thing down. Let's say that you go to dinner and you go to dinner with your significant other and you're sitting down at dinner and you're seated in a reasonable amount of time. The waiter or waitress hands you the menu and they bring you drinks. You order the food. The food comes in a reasonable amount of time. The food is good. You pass on dessert. You're not really, you're kind of full. You're good. The check comes. The check seems reasonable. You pay it. You leave. You're satisfied. You are a satisfied customer. The satisfied customer is not going to tell anybody about that experience. There's no reason to, because the satisfied customer is the base standard. That's the default setting. So what you're not looking for, you're not even looking for happy customers. So satisfied customers is the default setting, and happy customers, okay, you're happy. Yeah, great. Who are they going to tell? You're looking for the raving fanatic. You're looking for someone who treated so well that they couldn't even consider going anywhere else. And that's the difference. So when you're saying, well, we provide exceptional service, that's not what they want. What they want is the memory. What you're selling, Sabah, is the memory. That's the difference. You're selling the experience. You're selling, what you have to do is sell the fantasy. That's what you're selling. And when you sell the fantasy, that's what people are willing to buy. That's the difference why people are like, look, you can go anywhere else you want. But realistically, if you want the most exceptional experience you've ever had, and I will guarantee that, if it was not the most exceptional experience, I will give you your money back. And that's the difference. And you have to differentiate yourself from everybody else that's charging less, because all they're getting is a boat ride. Okay, if you want a boat ride, you can get a boat ride from anyone. But if you want if you want a core memory, and you want something that feels absolutely special from what we do compared to what everybody else does, that's positioning. That's a marketing problem. That is an education problem. And that's a hill for you to die on. So really, that's what you need to convey to others. And imagine, again, I'm really excited about this. Listen, I will tell you this one thing. Anybody else can go on a boat trip. Anybody else can go on a boat ride. But can anyone else guarantee that it's going to be the most exceptional experience, core memory that they're going to carry for the rest of their lives? That's the guarantee that I'm making. Does that resonate with you? Does that sound a little bit different? That's the thing again, I don't know how you're pitching it, but I'm telling you, for me, that's exactly what I would be doing. I would be doing a lot more differentiation in my market, because if people are choosing price because they see that they look at one price and look at the other price and they don't see anything different, they're always going to, the confused mind, they're just going to say, well, I don't really have any basis of comparison. I'm just going to go with them. Okay. So that's the difference. Okay. All right. So hopefully that makes sense for you. So the various marketing approaches, I'm just going to make this really quick because this is not in the marketing class, but I do that with marketing magic. But there's outbound lead generation, inbound lead generation. Outbound and inbound, people often get confused. It's basically, think about who initiates. So in outbound lead generation, that's initiated by the company. That means, think of it like interruption advertising, where you're going to say, well, I'm going to put out an advertisement, or I'm going to put up a billboard, or I'm going to put up an advertisement in a magazine. That's basically interruption marketing. That's initiated by the company. Inbound lead generation is where, like, I wonder if there's a boat company nearby, or I wonder if there's a realtor nearby. I wonder if there's a company that makes pizza nearby. And they go into Google, SEO. Okay, cool. Yep, there's my choices, and that's inbound, right? So it's really about who initiates, and that's about probably the easiest way I can describe that. Direct response is where you'd say, hey, whatever type of advertising, could be inbound or outbound. Basically, it's going to say, oh, here's this thing, click this here, or hey, here's our offer, go to that store right now and buy it for $20, right? That's direct response. It's where you're taking something very specific, giving them a very specific action to take. So that's direct response. Of course, networking is part of that marketing approach. You've got alliances that you could put together. Who could you ally yourself with? And I know joint ventures and alliances are often thought of as the same thing. They're actually not the same thing. Alliances are probably a little bit more, they're less formal. They're formed by two companies that may be in complementary industries. So for example, Sabah, who is, so you're saying, I'm not directly dealing with guests, it's the agents. So might sound like you might need to change up your marketing. I mean, again, I don't know the specifics of your situation, but if it's the agents you're relying on them to sell for you, it sounds like they are not doing a good job for you. That's what it sounds like to me. But the alliances, I'll give you an example. Alliances where you have two complementary industries. Are there people, I'll use Sabah's example of the boat tours. Would there be like an opportunity for like a wedding, like a wedding planner who also wants to have a really exceptional experience and brings the bride and the groom on this boat tour, right? As part of their experience, wedding dress, the whole thing, yada, yada, right? So that could be an alliance that could be formed between a bridal, a wedding planner and a boat tours, right? So you might think, well, what does that have one to have to do with the other? Maybe there's even something around, other people who maybe also rent jet skis. And they say, I don't really want jet ski, but okay, well, if you want jet skis, come over here. If you want a really cool experience, you can come over here, right? But the thing is, there are complementary industries. Whereas a joint venture, they tend to be a little bit more formal, where there's actually a new entity that's completely formed by the joint venture. So that is the difference there. And then you can obviously do press releases. You can do affiliate type marketing. So there's lots of different types of marketing approaches where I want you to think of. But when you're looking at networking, and this is the fourth bullet point here, when you're looking at networking it's basically also called word of mouth marketing. And I've heard of people reference that before. And when you're looking at word of mouth marketing, there's just basically one universal truth. And the universal truth about word of mouth marketing is it's always working. The question, is it working for you or is it working against you? Okay. You have to remember that the new gold rush is for attention, and people are dying to keep your attention. And this is the thing. If your networking is not working, because again, money follows attention. If your networking is not working, you have to recognize that you're not owning the mental real estate of other people. The mental real estate is when they're thinking of X, they think of Y, and you are Y. That's the difference. In my town, there are people who will never disconnect me from being a Marine, right? I was a U.S. Marine. I'm still a U.S. Marine. I'm just not on payroll anymore. But that, for them, that's how they know me. And everything else I do is almost ancillary. They don't even think of anything else. If for some people, they only know me in the real estate world, and that's the mental real estate I have owned for those people. Other people, they call me coach because for a while I kind of reference myself as that. Now I've kind of moved away from the coaching moniker, but more into a strategist. But people call me that as a term of endearment. But that's the thing, is I own those phrases. And when people have a difficulty in business, or they're having difficulty in some other thing, I own that mental real estate of theirs. That's because I position myself in that way. So you have to position yourself as part of an overall strategy. So when people think of you, they're not thinking of some other thing. And that takes time. And that is also something that takes effort, because again, when I'm looking at a lot of entrepreneurs and they've got all these different business ideas and they're trying to incorporate 5 different businesses all at one time, and they're wondering why they're not getting referrals. Yeah, man, because you're not committed to any one thing. You're serving too many masters. And that's a real problem for people who I see are struggling in their networking. This is something that I learned. This is, I love this. This is called the VCP process. And this is something that I learned in BNI. And it's really about visibility, credibility, then profitability. And you have to go through this in this order, that at some point in time, like many of you on here are seeing me for the first time, and I am visible to you. That's about it. For some of you, I might have a little bit of credibility. Like, yeah, I see what he's saying. Yep, I'm not sure that I believe that quite yet, or yeah, okay, I'm listening. So for some of you, I might have a little credibility. Some I have a lot of credibility. Some I have no credibility. Okay. But either way, wherever I'm at in that spectrum, I cannot possibly hope to get to profitability with you, especially as a network referral partner, if I don't have credibility. Again, if I haven't demonstrated my competence to you, you're not going to trust me. Why would you? There's no reason to. So again, that visibility, credibility, and then over time, it gets to profitability. Now, again, some people are more transactional. Men tend to be a little bit more transactional, not all of them, right? And there are some women who are very transactional. Oh, you have a widget and I need a widget. I will give you money for widget. Cool. Transaction done. Some people are more relational. Hey, yeah, I know you've got a widget, but let's talk a little bit. Let's just make sure that, this is going to be a good fit. Because this isn't just a transaction for me. This is about a relationship. This is, I want to get to know you a little bit. So that's, for some people, they're more relational. That's a big deal. So again, visibility, then credibility, and then ultimately profitability. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be doing business with that individual across the table. That means that they're ready to refer business to you. And that's the main purpose around referral marketing or networking. So let me ask you this. Again, thinking about visibility. And again, a lot of times I see a lot of people that, because they're so fragmented in what they do, they have all these different thoughts in their mind. They have all these different businesses. And every time they show up to a networking event, they're talking about a different line of work that they're in. If I were to ask the people that were if I were to ask the 5 people that were closest to you, what is it you do? How many different answers would I get? Truly. And I mean, would they really know how to answer those questions? Would they really be able to say, well, I don't really know what they do, right? I don't really know what Mark does. I don't really know what Jesse does. I don't really know what Caitlin does. Okay. Well, whose fault is that? That's your fault, because again, a lot of times you may have been picking out all these different areas and you're not really clear about what problems that you specifically solve. That's for you to fix. Again, you have to own their mental real estate. You have to, when people think of a problem, they think of you. If people are walking by and they see broken glass on the ground and they see a broken window, they go, I'm thinking of the alarm guy. I'm thinking of the guy who sells alarms, right? If they see, they walk past someone's lawn and the lawn is all brown, they go, I'm thinking of that guy who works for that landscaping company because he told me he knows how to fix that. Make sense? So I'm just telling you, like something for me is not so much a visual, but it's more of a mental hook. It's more of that mental thing where people say, man, I'm really struggling in my business. I'm really struggling to grow my business, and everything I seem to be trying just isn't working. That's a big thing for me. I can help people grow businesses, especially if they're trying to grow a business that doesn't metastasize into something else. If people are really struggling with their organization, with their systems and their processes, that's a big thing. If people have lots of turnover in their organization, that's something. If they're constantly hiring and firing people, that's something that I can help with. So again, it's really important that you own their mental real estate. Figure out the problems that you solve for people and make sure that others know what that is. And it's also important that you be divisive. You take a stand. Don't be wishy-washy about what is it you do. I've seen people come to you and say, "Hey, will you just coach me one time?" No, I won't do that. I don't work just one off. And the reason why is because there's too much setup. That's like, that would be like asking a surgeon, well, could you just do a little bit of surgery on my heart? No, I'm not going to do just a little bit of surgery on my heart. That's crazy, right? That's not what they do. So you want to think about this, about being divisive and taking that stand, and really be about the things that you're about, and be obnoxiously against the things that you're not about. That's important. And the other thing is ask for the referrals. Saying, hey, can I ask you, is there anyone who you might think of who might be getting married in the next 6 months? Do you know of anybody who may be getting ready to have a baby? Do you know of anyone who maybe is looking who has some other life event where you're asking for the referral? But again, this is really hard for you to ask for referrals, especially from the very beginning. Notice what I did today. I asked for the referral today. Who do you know that's in the contracting world? Who do you know that is in the restaurant business, specifically coffee shops? Who do you know that may be struggling to grow their business? Who do you know that might be struggling with turnover? Right? Those are the people, again, asking for that referral. Do you know anybody like that? And that's where it's really important. It's also important that you lead with lots of value, with massive amounts of value. Today, some of you got lots of value from this. Some of you got no value and you left early. Okay, fine. But the thing is, if I'm bringing lots of value you're much more likely to say, you know what, I don't know exactly if he's able to help you, but I really am feeling pretty good about sending a referral his way because he did bring a lot of value to me. So, what kind of value can you bring to people within your network? If you know, for example, like Sabah, for example, I know that she has a business in Dubai that is called Neptune. And now, if I see a, I don't know, an advertisement that maybe she could use in her, from a competitor, let's say they live in Ireland, right? But I see that advertisement in Ireland that she might be able to use for Neptune in Dubai. I'd say, hey, this might be giving you an idea and maybe something you could do to attract customers for you. Yeah, I like that idea. That's a really good idea, right? So now I'm bringing value. I'm always bringing value to the relationship. I'm always bringing value to my network. I'm not saying, so when are you going to repay me, Sabah? I don't keep score that way. All right. So I want you to think about this. How do you prepare your network for referrals? So let me give you an example. Let's say for argument's sake that you're like, well, I don't really know, Mark. How do I start the conversation? Let's say it's my neighbor and I know he's a train wreck. He needs help in his business and he's tried coaches before and coaches are good, but coaches just aren't enough. They haven't really been able to help. Well, he might need a strategist, and a strategist, there's a difference between a strategist and a coach because, where coaches will ask questions, strategists will build systems. And that's good. It's not bad that coaches are asking questions, but really sometimes they might need systems. Whereas a coach is really about improving the performance of a game, of a game that's already been decided. A strategist will decide the game that's going to be played and also how to win. So they're just two very different standards. So you might be saying, okay, cool. So I'm sold. It sounds like he needs a strategist. How do I have that conversation with him? He's always complaining about his business. Okay. So I'm going to tell you exactly. So the next time, let's say that you're sitting in a backyard barbecue with him, or you're having a drink with him, or you're, whatever. And he starts saying, oh my gosh, I had to fire another guy this week. And it's just, I don't know how I'm going to get all this work done because it's so hard to find good people and everything else. Okay, yeah, man, you've been complaining about this for a while. Can I ask you something? Sure. Who do you have helping you with that? Who do you have helping you with that? No, I don't have anybody. Okay, well, the reason I ask is I met this guy. You see what I did, right? So who's helping you with that? So this is how you out there train someone else to send referrals to you. That make sense? Who's helping you with that? So you might say, well, you might be wondering, well, how do I refer someone to get on a boat trip with you? How do I refer someone to buy insurance from you? How do I refer someone who is doing, without them being weird and salesy about it? Because people, right, they get weird and salesy. They'd say, okay, well, if you hear of someone saying, yeah, I'm really planning on I'm having some people visit people visit my home, and I would love to have an amazing experience for them. Great. Do you have any ideas? No, I mean, I'm kind of thinking about maybe doing this, doing that, doing this, doing that. Okay, well, if you're open to a thought, I don't know who's helping you with that, but I know this gal that does boat tours who really guarantees an amazing experience. Would that be right? Who's helping you with that? You see what I'm saying? See how you can tee that up. You don't have to use the exact language. I didn't use it in that example, but I'm just saying, you can say, great, who's helping you with that? Or are you open to some thoughts? And that is a great way for you out there to train your referral partners on how to send you referrals. Make sense? So that's a really, really powerful way to do that. So a couple of success strategies, and we're going to put the fries in the bag today. But a couple of different things I want you to think about is 15 reasons why people will buy, and what's known as the 6 principles of persuasion. So I'm really going to get to, and also just a couple of mistakes to avoid. Here are 15 reasons why people will buy. I'm going to put this back up on the screen here. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about these are all reasons why people will want to buy and why they're going to want to potentially buy from you. So people buy because they want to make money. They want to save money. They want to save time. They want to avoid effort. They want to escape pain. Could be physical pain, could be emotional pain, could be spiritual pain, whatever it is. People will buy for more comfort. They will buy for better health. They will buy to gain praise, to feel more love, increase their status. Right? Now keep in mind, in better health could also be less stress, right? Keep in mind for that. People will buy for truth, especially if they have felt lied to in the past. They will buy for growth. They will buy for novelty just because something is new. They'll buy for certainty. And they will also buy to be in contribution to others. So when you're thinking about this, what I want you to do is I want you to list all 15 of these. And what I want you to do, put them on different sheets of paper. And I want you to come up with all the reasons, directly or indirectly, how you help people make money. Directly or indirectly. How do you help people make money? You might think, well, I don't help people make money. Yeah, but directly or indirectly. Let's say you save them some time, which allows them to do more heart surgery things, and then they get more money. So directly or indirectly, how do you help people make money? How do you help people directly or indirectly save money? How do you help them directly or indirectly save time or avoid effort, escaping pain, etc., etc.? And let's say you came up with 10 different reasons under all of these. Now you got 150 different ways, and some of them are going to be a little wonky, I'll grant you that. But what if you came up with somewhere in there is going to be like a really something you really hadn't thought about? So now you've got creative ways about how you can help people in these different reasons in terms of why they're going to want to buy from you. Make sense? In terms of the principles of persuasion, this is the different principles of persuasion. There's reciprocity, commitment and consistency, social proof, liking, authority, and of course, scarcity. And when it comes to the principles of persuasion, this was a book written by Robert Cialdini called Persuasion. And what he, was it called Persuasion? Yeah, I feel like it's called Persuasion. Yeah. So anyway, no, it's called Influence. That's what it is. Influence. So the main thing around this book that Robert Cialdini wrote was reciprocity is that giving something of value, you're going to get something in return. So a lot of times I'm going to ask you, Sabah, okay, if you're struggling in your referrals, how many referrals have you given? How many referrals have you given other people? Okay. Jessica, how many referrals have you given other people? Okay. And that's the thing is when people are struggling with their referrals, a lot of times when they're struggling for referrals, it's like, well, they're struggling for referrals. They're not getting any referrals. They're not getting anything from their network because they're not giving anything to their network. They're not giving any value. So again, if you're not giving any referrals, how in the world can you expect to receive any? Now, again, so I just want you to think in terms of that law of reciprocity. That is a big, big deal, especially if you're looking to hope to bring other people and get referrals from others. So again, I want you to think about that. How many referrals have you given if you're hoping to receive referrals? Some mistakes I want you to avoid is having an unclear message. This goes back to the 3 C's of business vision around core purpose, core values, and client avatar. If you're not clear in any of those 3 things, your messaging is not going to be clear, and it doesn't magically get more clear as it leaves your mouth and gets to their ears. Failing to follow up. I cannot tell you how many times when people go to networking events, and I usually keep a stack of business cards on my desk just as I clean my desk off here, but how many times you wind up at a networking event, you get a business card, you bring it back to your office, you set it down, you put it in a little rubber band, and you set it there, and maybe a few months later you look at it and go, I have no idea who that individual is. You need to be following up immediately. Immediately you need to be following up. And if you're not following up with these people, I'm telling you, that is you've wasted everyone's time. So if someone gives you a referral, you need to be on that referral like a freaking Band-Aid. If someone you have met that you want to continue to foster that relationship with, you need to continue to follow up with them. The other thing is monopolizing other people's time, especially if you're in a networking event where you're like, oh, cool, I found my person to network with. I'm like, don't go anywhere. You're my networking person for the night. Look, you can overplay your hand. You can monopolize someone's time. It's one thing if you jive with that person. You're like, cool, we should totally hang out sometime. I love it. but don't monopolize their time. And even say that, look, I don't want to monopolize your time. I'm really enjoying the conversation. Is there anyone else here that you'd like to network with? And they will appreciate, oh no, thank you so much, because I'm actually trying to connect with this person over here, but can we catch up at another time? Absolutely. No problem. Or you'd say, no, I'm actually good. I've met the people I need to meet. I'm really enjoying this conversation. I'd love to connect with you. Right? So just be mindful of monopolizing other people's time, especially during a networking event. Another mistake to avoid is being inauthentic. Don't try to be something you're not, because people will smell that a mile away. And again, that relates to character. If people don't trust your character, they're not going to trust you enough to send you referrals. And again, the mistakes to avoid, like I mentioned, is not giving any referrals. If you're not giving referrals, how could they possibly trust you enough that you're going to handle referrals well when they send them your way? So again, the other thing is, I mentioned this earlier about being transactional versus relational. You have to recognize that some people are just a little bit more transactional in nature. Some people are a little bit more relational in nature. So when you're having these conversations, you're just going to have to kind of gauge, just with that, emotional intelligence that you're growing, and saying, hey, look, some people might take a little bit longer to get to the transaction. They might take a longer to get through the credibility. Like you're visible to them. They might take a little bit longer through the credibility process before they get to profitability. So again, visibility, credibility, profitability. So some people take a little bit longer to get through that process than others. But getting to trust as quickly as possible is what you're trying to do. Again, try to get them, demonstrate your competence as quickly as you possibly can. And then, of course, demonstrating what kind of person that you are through your character and by demonstrating your core values. Remember, the fastest way to create trust is to demonstrate competence. The fastest way to destroy trust is to demonstrate a lack of character. Okay? So remember that being that authentic version of yourself, just be who you are. Okay, and if you have some character flaws, everybody does, but work on those character flaws. I'm not saying you have to fix every chink in your armor, but again, if any one of those 7 areas of trust, that if you're not demonstrating some area of that trust where people are going to not trust you and you may not know why, that's going to be a problem. You have to fix those areas, specifically around those areas, those key areas. So I'm going to just show you a quick picture here. If you're looking at the photo, this guy here, he's a bank robber. He's actually holding a gun at the teller right now. And what this is a guy, MacArthur Wheeler and Clifton Earl Johnson. They robbed 2 banks back in the 90s at gunpoint without any attempt to disguise themselves. Instead, what they did was they covered their faces in lemon juice. I'm not making that up. And they firmly believed that would make them invisible to security cameras. So this baffled people. Like, there's no way anybody would believe that, right? Because if you write in lemon juice, right, and you hold it up to a heat lamp, like it's like invisible ink. Well, that's what they thought. So anyway, these 2 researchers by the name of Dunning and Kruger, I'm going to take myself down. I'll show you this. They started doing a study on how false confidence plays a role for people. And this is very true, not just for bank robbers, but also for business owners. And this is very true for people who are struggling, especially when they get started out. So everybody starts at this bottom here where their confidence is very low and their competence, what they know, is also very low. But they start out very confidently, like, oh my gosh, how hard could this be? And their confidence spikes very early until they get to what's called the peak of Mount Stupid. And this is where all of a sudden they start realizing that they don't know what they don't know. And it comes crashing down pretty fast. And they've learned a little bit, but it usually comes at a big expense of their confidence. This is when they're in their valley of despair. And this is where a lot of business owners tend to give up. But if they keep working on it, they keep building on their experience, they give up and they keep working on their competence, they head up that slope of enlightenment and eventually get to a plateau of sustainability. This is why it's really important to have a support system. So what I'm recommending here is, again, I have a school community, which is actually called, which is at Strategic Boardroom. And there's a small cost to it right now. You can head there to strategicboardroom.com. It's, if you just want the basic, course, or basic community, is just $39 a month right now if you're interested. I'm not really here to promote this. I just wanted to give people another venue and another option if people are interested in joining this. And again, we meet fairly often, several times throughout the week, for different things. We engage in some networking events. We engage in different things. Lots of different learnings, specifically around the Viper framework, the vision, infrastructure, process, execution, reporting, and also around the 4 core functions. So again, if it's interesting to you, you can join us there. And there's different levels there. So anyway, that is all that I have. If anybody has any questions, you go ahead and type them in. I'm happy to help you out. I'll hang out for just a few seconds here. All right, doesn't look like we have any questions. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put the fries in the bag. Thank you all so much for hanging around today. This is just a topic that really winds my clock. I really enjoy talking about networking, and reach out. I'd love to connect with you guys. And you can find me on social media. Pretty easy to find these days. And you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the boardroom. Thanks so much.